Hey, this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. Don't forget to check out my website, paradoxastrology.com. Book your consultation today. I can help you with anything. And if you would like more exclusive occult videos that I don't post on YouTube, consider subscribing to my Patreon. It also helps support this channel. Okay, let's get into this video. Now, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here. I really appreciate all of you. And I had to say that again because it's from the bottom of my heart. And I love that I was able to meet a lot of you on this channel. And a lot of you are very inspiring. You're very motivating and you're very positive. So I wanted to just thank you, all of you. So I get a lot of questions about astrology, obviously. And the way that I learned astrology was very unconventional. I have explained that to a few people, and I know it's kind of difficult to understand, especially everyone I've explained to was just through text and maybe a quick explanation. But I really wanted to go into this. What motivated me to speak about this is actually I saw an episode. There's a podcaster and his name is Beer Biceps, and he's on YouTube and he's Indian and he talks about Tantra a lot and he talks about astrology. He has this one guest, I forget his name, but he's amazing and he's a Tantric, and he was explaining, he's also an astrologer, how you're supposed to learn astrology by activation of the deities. And this is exactly how I was able to learn astrology so fast. And so that motivated me to actually sit down and talk about it, because I was like, it's kind of weird. I don't know, but now that I saw him talking about it, it kind of validates that I should talk about it as well. So I started learning astrology at the end of 2021. So a lot of people think that I've known astrology for a long time. That's not that long. I started learning Western astrology and quickly learned that no, this is not my path. Vedic astrology and Jyotish has a spiritual aspect which is missing from Western astrology. And I have done this in a past life. And I was a tantric in a past life. That's very clear to me through my chart. I have a chart that shows someone who's very spiritual and a lot of indications of tantric knowledge and things of that nature. Also, before I ever learned astrology, I was very spiritual and I awakened my Kundalini by myself without any guru, without any knowledge. I just started meditating for 2 hours a day, and I used to grab all the elements because it just made sense. So I would grab salt, and then I'd grab water, and then I put rocks, and then I put all the elements together and meditate on them, which is Tantra. But I had no idea, it just made sense to me. And I just felt like, yeah, I did this in a past life. If I do it again, it will work, because all I have to do is wake myself up because I'm asleep. Because if you don't wake yourself up by doing spiritual practices, which activate the rest of your brain, this is why science says that we don't use 100% of our brain, we only use a small percentage. This is because you're supposed to activate it using your Kundalini energy. Now, when the Kundalini rises, it goes straight to the brain. Now, when the Kundalini rises into certain chakras, it activates the brain as well. So then now we're using the other parts of our brain. Also, what it does is we have a film, which is the Maya. It is what's blocking us from seeing the absolute truth in our lives. So if you don't open that up, then you're an NPC and you are going based on emotion and desire. That leads you astray. That is the ego, instead of working with the universal mind. So I was already doing these types of things. I really just started learning Vedic astrology in 2022. I was doing a practice called Kujian, which raises your Kundalini energy as well. And that helped me learn fast. But I will say that the fastest learning that I ever did was in the last 6 months by doing tantric practices. Now, Tantra is one of the highest levels of spirituality and is a path that awakens you very fast. And this is why that this can be a dangerous path for some. It's kind of like somebody with an anchor. You're like in the water. You kind of need that somebody with a rope that's hanging on to you, because you can kind of disappear into the water and drown yourself if you're not careful, because it can make you go crazy if you don't understand what's happening. And I always read that, but I didn't understand what they were talking about until I started practicing. All of a sudden, when you start waking up that fast and you start realizing your whole life you were asleep, and that everything you've ever known is a lie, that can make you go crazy. That can make you think that you are the crazy one. How is the whole world asleep but I'm awake? It doesn't make sense. It must be me, right? Thankfully, I have a dad who's very awakened. He has helped me through my journey. And so I'm very thankful. My dad is not a spiritual guru or anything like that. I've taught him most of the spiritual stuff, but he innately knows it. He understands everything I'm talking about. I've taught him astrology and a lot of different spiritual things, but he understands without having to have the knowledge. He just innately understands because he did this in a past life too. Luckily, I've had that. But to learn astrology at a fast pace is connecting with the deity. Now, the deities are the goddesses. Now, there's different paths to Tantric. There's different deities and everything like that. They all lead the same way, is enlightenment, is moksha. I choose the goddesses because I wanted to understand the divine feminine, because I feel that that is something we're really missing in society and it's leading women astray. So I wanted to connect with that. Connecting with the deity is how you're actually supposed to learn astrology. And this is a lost art. They teach you this in the occult, in spiritual books. That's why you see all the top occultists are taught by deities. I've had deities around me my entire life. Since I was a small child, I remember seeing them on top of the ceiling. My first memory is of my brother waking me up saying we have to call 911 and going in the kitchen and seeing my mom stabbed herself. So that's my earliest memory. And she was an alcoholic and she was anorexic. So there was a lot of chaos. And because of that, and she was very spiritual though. She was very connected, like mostly all the planets in the 8th house, like very connected. And that kind of drove her mad. So there was deities, there was dark deities that I would see in my house and she would see them too. And there was also light deities who would come to me and teach me things. So when I woke up the first time when I was older, because I was awake when I was younger, I went back asleep because of trauma, and then I woke back up, and this was around 2009, 10, 11, 12, all the way to 2015. And the reason I stopped doing all my meditative practices is because I ended up human trafficked. That stopped my meditation practices, and then I got back on it in 2020. But before that, I woke myself up because I was meditating, and all of a sudden, because I would do 2 hours a day and I would completely disappear, and then deities were talking to me and telling me things and telling me about my life and telling me what's going to happen and how I signed a contract with them. And I'm here to help humanity. So I would always go back and talk to them. Now, I lost that connection for a bit, but then when I'm doing Tantra, I got that connection back. And now I understand, because I used to see Hindu deities and I didn't even know what they were. I was like, there's these blue guys and there's these, I don't know what they're saying and I don't know who they are, but I trust them, like it was really odd because they would only tell me positive things. So now, when you have the deity, all of a sudden it starts unblocking because you already know everything. It's not that you have to learn anything, okay? You have to dissolve the Maya and the belief that you don't know it. You have to dissolve that. You have to wake yourself up. So when you start using the deities and it starts rising your Kundalini energy, and then your chakras, they're never closed, but they're slightly closed, like they may not be open that much. They start opening up. Now you have access to this knowledge that you didn't have before, especially if you start understanding astrology. It can show you things in symbols because the universe works in symbols. And so if you have a thing like an astrology chart, it can actually show you these symbols. First, how it started teaching me is in my sleep. When I started doing the mantras, one night it would just be all about Mars. The next night it would be about Saturn. And it would be constant, like teaching me all these things in my sleep. And I wake up and then I'd be like, yeah, it was telling me about Mars and Mars. Sometimes I wouldn't remember everything it said, but it was a download, like I'd understand. It started telling me about the transits to the D9. It said, check the transits to the D9. Those are important. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, look it up. This is a real thing. So it would teach me this knowledge directly. That's what it does. It directly teaches you. So that's how I started learning astrology very fast. The reason you do this is because we are limited in our ego mind, okay? If you start trying to predict the future or trying to help people using astrology, just using your ego, you're going to fail. You're going to fail, and you're going to fail all the people that are really reliant on you. I take it very seriously. I take my clients very, very seriously. Probably a lot more serious than they even take it, because I can really affect this person's life and I want to do it for the positive. So I have to be on point. Your mind is limited by the ego. No matter what, we're still in here, it's still being filtered. So all the information that you're reading from the chart, if you're not awakened to your higher consciousness, it's being filtered through your ego, through your belief system, through everything you've been through your trauma, all of these things. And now you're reading it based on your own perception, which is not what you're supposed to do at all. In order to actually read the chart, you have to take yourself out, completely out of the equation. It's not about you. It's not about what you believe. I have my own thoughts about the government, say. I don't trust in the government, but that's not for me to project on anybody else. I may not like certain things, but that's not for me to project on somebody else. I have to come with a clear mind in order to predict for somebody, in order to predict the future. Because I may see something that maybe my beliefs don't agree with, but it's the truth. And we are human. That's going to naturally happen. The only way for you to actually predict beyond that is to use the deity, because then the deity comes in and the deity will tell you what you're missing as a human. You're able to channel the deity through you, because as you progress doing Tantra, the whole premise is to become the deity. It's not to worship the deity like Abrahamic religions will lead you to believe. It is actually to become the essence of the deity. And when you become the deity, now you have the power of the universal mind, because it is you. Nothing is outside of you. It is you. First, you see it as in front of you, and then it becomes you. When you do these things, it also enhances your spiritual powers, enhances your everything from clairvoyance to clairaudience to everything, right? Even though that isn't the point, but it does help when you are doing readings. So for example, if someone were to email me, I've had this lots of times, someone will email me, I'm having this problem, can you help me? And then the deity will see like, they need to do this. I'm like, okay, like I won't really understand why yet until I talk to them, and then they'll just confirm what the deity already told me. So that's why when people say, oh, thank you for your predictions and stuff like that, I say it's not mine, it's the deity. Thank the deity. I'm just a channel. I'm not taking any credit for what the deity did. Even the deity is us, but it's not me as the ego self. It's not it's not my personality. It's not me with a makeup on and stuff like that. Once you start thinking that, that's when you lose all your power. That's when the ego comes in and you lose all that. Humility is what keeps your power, and the understanding that this is coming from the deity and the worship of the deity. That's how you're actually supposed to predict. All my readings come from higher self. So when I'm starting to read for somebody and I'm starting a consultation, I'll do all my mantras before. Once it starts, my energy rises, my kundalini rises, and I start sweating. More sweat than if you're doing like a cardio for 2 hours and leg day. I sweat more than that through like 2 hoodies and a shirt and my pants. That's why I wear sweatpants, because it just completely sweats through it, and I always have to change my clothes after. That's my kundalini energy rises, the deity rises, so that I'm able to give correct information. When you start using the power of the deities, this energy will naturally rise in you all the time. It can get really hot sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, it can get really hot sometimes because I'm just in the beginning stages. That'll definitely taper off eventually. This is actually how you're supposed to do readings, and that's what's lost in the West. That's why I highly disagree with Western astrology, because now you're just a chart reader, and astrology was never supposed to be that way. Astrology is a spiritual science. We're supposed to enlighten ourselves first before we can give anyone advice. We have to be a clean vessel for that as well. That's why it's very disappointing when I see astrologers doing drugs and drinking and all of this and then giving readings. It's like your mind isn't clear, so how can you give someone crucial advice if your mind isn't clear? Your body is supposed to be the temple, the vessel for the deity. So how can the deity come through if it's damaged like that? So this is the highest level of doing astrology. And this is actually how you do it to be precise, because I don't have those abilities. It's the deity that has those abilities. When I'm doing a consultation and then I say something out of nowhere, it didn't come from me. When I write, I've noticed lately, when I write my predictions out for the new moon or the next month, I read it and I have a photographic memory. So when I read something that I wrote, I see pictures. But when it comes from the deity, I don't see pictures anymore. It's like I'm reading something that I don't remember writing, and it isn't in my writing. And it's being more and more apparent that this is the deity and it's not me. The more I do the spiritual practices, the more this advances, the more it starts telling me things. So another reason why you work with the deity is it can help you in your life. Say something comes up, say someone messages you and wants to do business with you. This is an example that's happened with me. You can look at the chart and figure out why they want to do that. You can see all their motivations, but sometimes you don't see that because say you actually want to do business with this person, your ego's in the way and it's stopping you from seeing the truth. Well, the deity will point to me. It will show me certain planetary positions that I wasn't paying attention to. It will talk to me through symbols or it'll directly tell me in my head. These kind of deities have helped me through my entire life, even in times when I wasn't meditating and practicing, and very crucial times, in times of panic and times of life and death situations. It told me what I needed to know out of nowhere and saved me, literally saved me from so many things, the Kundalini rising. So I highly suggest that you do spiritual practices if you want to learn astrology very quickly. I learned it so fast that people were saying that I was lying, that I've actually known it for longer. No, I wish. That would have helped me for a lot of situations, but no, it hasn't been that long. But as you can see that my predictions have been very accurate and the knowledge is there. That is just all because of the deities. Kali Ma, Chinnamasta, many different deities. Those are just the two main ones. I just wanted to make that clear and I hope you enjoyed that and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.